Order. This is the January meeting at 1 o'clock. Councilor Buzzard, would you please do the lesson?
Yes, sure, thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, as we come here for our meetings as the Cherokee Nation today, we ask you to give us guidance, keep your hand upon us. Thank you for the safe travel that you provided for our citizens and tribal council members. We ask you to keep your hand upon our people that protects our land, our troops here and troops overseas. We ask you to give us guidance in our meetings, and we thank all of this and ask this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Counselor. Roll call, Shelley. Honey.
Duncan. Keith Austin.
Here.
Harvey Buzzard.
Here.
Julia Coates. Sean Crittenden. Joe Peter.
Well, he's got some good arms on it.
Rex Jordan. Here. Darrell Legg.
Here.
Wes Snowflare. Laura Petskowski. Here. Mike Shambach.
Here.
Mary Bakershaw. Connie. Leo Smith.
Here.
Denise Taylor. Here. Victoria Espley. Connie. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. This time I entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Motion.
Second.
And second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you. Down to reports, Marshal Service, Shannon Buell.
Good afternoon. Hello. Real quick, some administrative stuff before I go to the monthly rules. We do have an opening for a deputy marshal right now. One of our marshals retired, went to security, LD Drywater. He's over at the security department now. I think he's probably happy over there because he doesn't have to drive nearly as much as we have to drive, but that opening is until February 2nd. So if you know anybody in your area, they have to live within the 14 counties. If they don't live there now, that's fine, but they have to move before they get through the academy. If you know anyone that would like to apply, go through Cherokee.org HR and have them put the app in, and we'll get those applications probably the end of the first week of February to start that process. I want to make sure everybody's aware of that.
Patrolling.
Yes, it starts out as a basic marshal. That person will come in, whoever gets the appointment, come in 4 months to the Federal Academy, 4 months on FTO, then go to work. And it's midnight shift, evening shifts, all the fun that you could ever want to have is ahead of them. So
Is it for any location?
yeah, they can live anywhere in the 14 counties. We don't care where that is. I have marshals live in Grove, Owasso, Stillwell, here, all over the place. So.
Who was that retired?
LD Drywater.
LD, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was with us, I think, 17 years.
Yeah.
And
And
really good. Came from Stillwell Police Department back in probably 02, 03. Did an outstanding job for us for the past maybe 8 years. Did the courts and did our paper service in the communities. If Housing Authority has paper services, ICW, he will do that paper service for us. So we have another guy doing that now, so we move on. So we're looking for young, fit people. We're always looking for good females. If you know of a good tribal female that wants to be a cop, we're always interested in that. We have one female on the Marshal Service, so we're always looking for another one.
any questions for our Marshal? I have one. I know you've been following the Murphy case.
Yes.
Have we had meetings to how we would handle the law enforcement part if that was to hold up in court?
I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to get on that side of it too much, but the Murphy case it's a very narrow case that only addresses Creek Nation and that situation. I'm smart enough to know that if that holds, that it's going to spread fast. I've had several meetings with the U.S. Attorney's Office, FBI, U.S. Marshals, BIA, on what are some of the plans and what that might look like depending on what avenue that goes down.
Okay.
So yeah, we are looking at it. all of us are just waiting,
Yeah,
like everybody else, of what that decision is going to look like. So.
okay. Anybody else? Okay, good report. Thank you, Marshal. Office of the Attorney General. It's not Chrissy.
Good afternoon. I'm John Young. I'm here for Sarah Hill. General Hill sends a regard. She had to be out on travel. She had to leave pretty quickly. She did give me some written notes to read into the record, if I may.
Okay.
With respect to the gaming compact, as council is aware, the nation filed a complaint in federal district court on December 31st, 2019, seeking a judicial determination that the compact automatically renewed on January 1, 2020. The governor's office has since filed an answer and counterclaim in this case. Oklahoma is seeking a judicial declaration that the tribes are conducting Class 3 gaming activities in violation of the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act and requests an injunction to prohibit the unlawful conduct of Class 2 games until the tribes negotiate a new compact with the state. The Citizen Nation, Potawatomi, and the Skokie Creek Nation have since intervened as co-plaintiffs with the other three tribes. With respect to the UKB 76 acres, the Cherokee Nation has filed a cert petition in the UKB matter on January 23, 2020. The nation's cert petition is based on the United States' unprecedented assertion of unilateral authority to take land into trust for one tribe within the boundaries of another tribe's treaty-protected territory. The UKB and the United States will have an opportunity to respond in opposition to our request for cert, and the nation will have an opportunity for a brief reply. I don't have a time frame for when we expect the decision from the Supreme Court, but General Hill will circulate the petition as it comes available. Under Murphy, all amicus briefs have been filed or will be filed on or before February 11th of this year. The Cherokee Nation will file an amicus brief as we did in the previous Murphy proceeding, focusing on the legal history of the 5 tribes. And finally, for the Brackeen case, members of the Cherokee Nation administration as well as tribal council members attended the hearing at the 5th Circuit. All parties will have to wait for the 5th Circuit to rule, and there is no way of knowing when that might be. Okay. Any questions?
Good update. Any questions from our council? Yes, Councilor.
You might ask our Attorney General, I know that with that pending on the Murphy case, and I think it's McGurk as well, case as well. Are there any sort of plans to handle large influx of cases if that was to get upheld?
I'll have to have General Hill speak to the
That's what I kind of
specifics of
figured. You
that.
might go ahead and have her ask that.
It's my sense that all of Eastern Oklahoma has been preparing for deluge of
What's going
cases
on?
if there's a change, but I'll have to have her speak to the specifics of
Okay,
that.
great. All right, thanks.
Yes, Councilor Shambo.
You didn't ever say a time frame, and maybe you don't know on the first case with the gaming compact. When will his side be heard on his allegations that we are legal gaming?
He filed a counterclaim with his answer to our claim, so we have 20 days to answer that, assuming we don't extend that a little bit.
Okay.
But other than that, we'll answer it, and then my sense is it would not be briefed for probably another 90 days or so after that, which is actually fairly quick in federal court terms.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We do have our chief here with us. Chief, you want to add anything to that, the compact?
In this compact dispute, I would rather be the chief of the Cherokee Nation than the governor of the state of Oklahoma. We're in the right and we'll see this through.
Okay. There you have it. Anything else for Mr. Young? Good report. Thank you. Okay. The next person is out ill, and she will not be here, but you do have, I think, a report. Election Commission, Mr. Marcus Fears.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So as of January the 7th, 2020, we have 74,605 total registered voters, 42,589 in the district, 32,016 at large On your report, I also threw in some year-end numbers as well. For 2019, the office processed 18,611 applications. That's both voter registrations and absentee. So it was a very active year. So 2020 will see us getting into the community for voter outreach. We'll be going to your community events, going to clinics and into the schools. And then, of course, very shortly, we'll start preparations for 2021 election and start it all over again. So does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Spears here? Yes, Councilor Crittenden?
I did it again. He said every time I talk, I straighten it. Right. Now, we're working in our election reform group, Marcus, you know. Election Commission, hardworking folks. So we're meeting, making a little headway. Election Commission, when would you like us to try to get some of that stuff approved and changed, where you guys would have time to do your job for the next election?
I don't believe, I don't have like a month or a day. I mean, the sooner the better, because, we go through all of our forms and all of our things according to what the act says. And so, the sooner that we get them, the sooner we can go through all that stuff and get everything prepared. But, I don't know, do you have a day and time on?
Because we've talked forms, we've talked about a bunch of things that will take some time to.
The commission starts getting the forms and working on precincts and stuff like that. You have to get the packets ready for the filing, which is in December. So they usually like to start on that in September anyway, August, September. If it pushes up into November or so, it's hard to get everything, all the packets and everything ready for the filing that, well, not the filing necessarily, but the candidates can start receiving donations 6 months before the election, which is in December. And the filing is in earlier, but they like to have all the forms and everything ready in December. So ideally, it'd be great if you all could come up with your final revisions by August, or at least by September.
Is that good, Counselor?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Is that good?
And I might say another thing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
The commission will be happy, like if your committee is working on this, if you'd like to get together and have a joint meeting with the commission to discuss some of the things you're thinking about and get their input for it.
Let me give my time to Doctor there. He's kind of the chair, if you will, of our group. So what do you think?
We'd be happy to have a joint meeting with your committee and discuss the things you're thinking about. If you want to get our input from some of them,
I'm sure
we'd be happy to do that.
it is a work group. I'm sure the work group would welcome that
It can be a work
invitation.
group, yeah.
I look forward to that.
Is that good?
And it's usually, the commission can meet about any time. It's usually, we have a couple of our members that are teachers, and usually our regular meetings are at 4 o'clock. So if, that way we could assure that everybody would be there.
Okay. Counselor Dobbins, you want to coordinate that with Mr. Chafin there?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, you can give me a call and we
Yeah.
can work out when that could be, when you all think you're ready to
Yeah, we're
get
not
together.
we're not
We might want to
there.
have an initial meeting and then come back after we get a little further along and have another. We have plenty of time to do that if we start now.
Yes. Okay.
It was helpful. You did kind of insert that you prefer deadline August/September.
That'd certainly be better.
Okay, thank you.
Problem was, last time we worked on it, we kept pushing the deadline on down. It got to where it was too late to do it for the last election.
Right.
We'd like to avoid that this time.
Okay. All right. Counselor Shaw,
No, I want to.
you want to yield to Counselor Coates? You're up.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to ask, I was looking at the report and I'm seeing deceased and relinquishments on it, reports of that. I wonder, does the Election Commission coordinate at all with registration in getting that kind of data? I know in the past that was not the case, but I wondered if that had been implemented.
Absolutely, yeah. We coordinate with registration on all of our deceased. Anytime we receive deceased forms, we actually have to send them to registration for their sign off, and then we get those back. And then monthly, we get a report that shows deceased that we are able to remove. So yeah, we are.
Follow-up then, I was wondering if you do the same thing with changes of address, because I know registration gets a number of address changes. Do they forward those over to the Election Commission by any chance?
We do not. The only way that we update our system for changes of address is they fill out a new voter registration form, and there's a box that you check change of address.
Mm-hmm. Would it be possible to set up something where registration sends those address changes over to you?
I'm not sure if we can or not. We can definitely check. Did you hear what her question was?
What was the question?
Question was if we could coordinate with registration on changes of address.
I think certainly, yes, if they change their address with registration, we could at least then send them a form to fill out and send to us. But with regard to the deceased new registrations, we can only remove them from our records if registration sends us a list of who they have shown as deceased from their records.
Okay.
That's in the election law.
Do they automatically send those to
I'm not
you?
able to hear this response, so I missed it. Is it possible for registration to send the change of addresses over to you? I'm asking this, I know that you have a form that requires the voter to do that separately with you, but I'm just kind of trying to imagine, because I personally was, in my campaign this last year, was involved in a couple of situations where people had changed their addresses, and after the absentee ballot request was put in, I think. And so I'm just kind of trying to think of ways, in terms of election reform, that this could maybe be done a little bit differently or a little bit efficiently. So I know that it's not what you do right now. I guess what I'm asking is, do you think it would be possible, if this was part of the reform, to do that in the future, that registration could advance those things to you?
Ms. Coates, this is Harvey Chafin. I think as the law currently exists, it would not be possible. I do think that the council, if they would desire to change the law to allow a voter registration address change to be changed, if notice was given by the registrar that the registered address of their tribal registration had changed, and send us that notice.
That was my question. I understand it's not currently the way things are done, but I'm just trying to sort of think through some things. Thank you.
Okay. So Councilor Dobbins, if that's one of the things that you guys are looking at or want to recommend, then you heard Councilor Coates. Okay. Anybody else? No. Yes, Councilor Shambaugh.
And just a comment. Before it's any changes that the committee comes with an agreement to bring to you, I hope that we, the ones who aren't on the committee, we're advised of this, and because I have some input too, and that I would like to have heard and considered too on it. That's just my only comment.
You'll come back to the council.
Yeah, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
Our work group we're discussing it. We're 2 meetings in, and we all recognize that we're not taking any votes. We're not making decisions, but that will be done in full committee here, in the Rules Committee. We're merely sharing ideas and bringing forth things we think are improvements, but final say-so will be in this Rules Committee.
Right. Okay. Counselor Smith?
Bob, how many have you removed off the list since the last election have passed away that are dead?
In your report, we have removed a total of 1,007 voters for the year of 2019. The vast majority of those have come in the last few months. And that's the reason that's happening is because we are going through as a staff, we are looking at every single file to ensure that our voter database has all of the voter registration scanned in. And so we want to make sure that if we need to pull a record, it is in the computer and we can see it easily instead of having to go to the vault. It's just faster that way. And in doing this, we'll notice citizens who may be born in the early 1900s, 1910s, and we can do research on those, and we may find obituaries. And what we'll do is we'll send those to tribal registration. Tribal registration will verify that they are deceased, and then they will get us a list back that they are indeed deceased, then we remove them. So in doing the process of scanning all of these forms, we've noticed a lot of deceased, and so there has been a lot more here in the last few months.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Counselor Deal?
I just had a real quick question.
Sir.
If there's a precinct adjustment, because you had said something about August and then being ready by December for the next election, when do you usually have those set just off the deal? Your precincts, whenever you're going to have them?
Precincts under the law are required to be sent to the commission, I believe, 90 days before the election.
Okay. That's all.
I think that's what it is.
Yes, Counselor Dorr?
When we're talking about these two systems, registration and election commission for address changes, do your systems talk to one another?
They
Is
do
it
not.
that, you're talking about either a whole new software program
we're-
or?
We're thinking about it. It may just be something as simple as a report that we get. I'm not sure. This
Right.
is the first time that we're hearing about it. But our systems do not talk.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
As it stands now, we receive a written report of new registrant, new citizens, and we receive one of deceased citizens from the registrar.
And so when you get that list, then someone else manually has to go in and
We have to manually
do all of that?
remove
Yes. Okay, thank
deceased,
you.
yes.
Chair, may I make one other comment?
Yes, go ahead.
What Mr. Dobbins said about presenting it to the council. The commission makes recommendations to the council and to this committee based on what they feel are good ideas or good changes that might be made. By the same token, they realize that the council is the one who enacts the laws, and they make recommendations, but whatever you all enact, they will follow your laws. And because you all are the ones that make the final decisions, and the commission will follow whatever you decide.
Okay. Yeah, because in the past, the recommendations always came from the election commission.
Yes, and we have previously sent to the committee
Sure.
all the recommendations we made in the past
Okay.
from the last two elections, actually.
Okay. All right, anybody else?
Follow
Yes,
up.
Counselor Critton?
Doctor, anybody else that's in our work group, y'all think it's a great idea to have them come down to our meetings?
At some point.
Our invitation.
Yeah, sure. We'd
Right.
welcome
I
you
mean,
to come.
the meetings we've had already, I can see it, because you guys aren't going to try to tell us what to do, right? I mean, so I can see in the talks we've had before, they can be a first-hand resource of, well, here's what we do. Some of the things we've been talking about, I think they would add a whole lot to the conversation. Now, if they were going to come in and just try to tell us what to do, then I'd bow up and everything like that. But just for a resource of how they actually handle stuff, I'm ready for them when the other members are.
Well, we can tell you what the law is now, some of these and how the law's been interpreted by the courts through the past. And
maybe even capabilities of software.
Just something simple as a form. We spent about an hour talking about a form one time. And you guys could be, well, actually, it's this, or here's how we go about it, and without,
Sure.
us trying to.
And like I said,
Whenever the work group's ready, I'm ready.
and there are some things that are limited by the software and the equipment that we have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, Harvey, Mark, good report. Thank you. Okay, our tax commission, Sharon Swepson. Oh, you come.
Afternoon. Hi, Sharon. I believe that you all have my report. I'll try to address any questions you might have.
Any questions for our tax commission? Are we ready for our spring meeting with our checks? Are we about calculating
You're getting there.
everything?
Yep, the education's putting all that together, so hopefully we'll have quite a bit of money to give to the school.
What was the amount last time? Like 5.6?
5.6 or 5.7, something like that.
Okay, and it'll
Hopefully
be
we'll
about the
have more than
same?
that this year.
Okay. Yes, Counselor Shaw.
I just have one question.
So-
Sharon, I saw the bracket on alcohol tax.
Uh-huh.
Please share with me, is that from our gasoline?
No.
Or is that from
That's
alcohol?
from the casinos.
That is from the casinos?
Yeah.
Well, we're not charging enough for our drinks then.
We receive a 2%, it's just a 2%. We get a 2% tax, but I could be mistaken, someone else can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they also pay the county and the city and those types of taxes, but for our tax, it's 2%.
Wow, then it's a true bargain to go to our casinos and have.
Yeah, we get free coffee and all that, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Good report.
Thank you.
All right, self-governance, I think this lady is on travel. Gaming Commission, Janice Purcell.
Good afternoon. I submitted my report. I would also like to say thank you to Councilman Smith for attending our last commission meeting, and we have one tomorrow at the golf course, and we hope to see you so that you can see the issues that we go over and everything.
Questions for,
I have one.
okay, go ahead.
In your report, it's on page 4, it says an evaluation of the 2019 audit plan was conducted mid-October, finding 5 of the 8 scheduled projects still outstanding. Can you expound on that just a little bit? And I guess at the root of my question is this something that we failed on our audit part to get in as a part of our audit, or was this something we were doing internally? Are there regulatory issues here? What can you?
We did get our audit in timely to NIGC, just actually this week. And the outside auditors were in, so we had to work in conjunction with them to make sure that everything was compliant. And it was. There's an outstanding tick that we need to make some changes, tribal internal control standards.
Right.
And so everything is fine. That was just to show that we're up to speed. Those were some issues that we needed to address, and we did. And I'm very glad that we did get that in.
Okay, but it's it's not like a regulatory issue that could trip us up. It was something we found ourselves before we sent our audit in. Is that
what they do? Is they check against BKD comes in, and they were
right.
checking against. We have a tick outstanding, and there's some issues about whether the canister and coins, if we have those regulations in place, and we do have some pending that the commission needs to approve. The commissioners need to approve, but those did not knock us out of compliance.
okay? That was my main thing. So and I guess what I'm trying to hear is this is something that we caught on ourselves before our audit was turned in that might have sent up a red flag. Is that
We just needed to explain why that wasn't completed. There's just one of them, and that is because we're pending adopting it.
Oh, okay, okay, all right, very good, thank you, Janice. That's all I
it?
have. Uh-huh.
Okay, anybody else? Yes, Counselor Buzzer?
Yes, sir. Janice, last month we talked about some of the smaller tribes. We talked about Cherokee Nation pulling out of the National and Oklahoma Gaming Commissions. And I think you told us last month that there would still be people going to those meetings.
Yes.
But I'm reading now some memos that we're not going to be participating in those meetings. I think you told us last month that you would send somebody to each one of those meetings. Are we still doing that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we attended the most recent one in Norman, and there is another one in Durant, and we're attending that one, and there's one in Thackerville. Oklahoma has a vast resource in how many tribes we have, and so a lot of the organizations are here in Oklahoma, and we can go to those, and it is more cost effective than to say go to San Diego. So on some of the ones, if the meeting's here in Oklahoma, we're going to go to the meeting in Oklahoma to save the tribe money, as opposed to going to the one in San Diego. NIGC has regional meetings, and the regional one is in Thackerville. We could say, well, I want to go to St. Paul, because that's a regional meeting too. But if it's the same one that's at Thackerville, I go to the one at St. Paul.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense about those regional meetings like that. The other thing is, I got a heads up that we're not paying for any staff to go to, and those are your calls, it's not the council's calls, but it's like if a person was the director of the National Indian Gaming Commission. We're not paying for that person to travel to represent, to be the president or the vice president or whatever he may be in that organization. I don't know, we have education people, and our director, he goes to the Oklahoma State Education meeting, and we pay for that, I'm sure. I guess we do, maybe he pays it on his own, but in your memo, I think you're saying you're not gonna be paying for those travels, hotel rooms, and for them to be a speaker or to represent, to be that organization. Is that what you're saying?
No. Not every month are we going to pay to go to San Diego, to go to Seattle. Those meetings are somewhere, and our first priority is making sure that we're getting everything in that needs to be into NIGC before we go, or we have currently an outstanding issue on licensing that there's a deadline. We need to take care of that first so we can be competitive and make more money for the tribe and make sure that we are hitting all the regulations. The national one that you're speaking of, there's only 10 Oklahoma tribes. The Oklahoma one, there's over 30 that are members of that. I know that it would be more exciting to go to San Diego than Thackerville, but it is more cost effective and it is actually better for an Oklahoma tribe to go there. And no offense to the Choctaws, that's a great, to the Chickasaws, that's a great facility.
Okay, well, the reason it's brought up again is because I've had two smaller tribes saying that they want Cherokee Nation there because we're the leader in gaming. And with all the gaming issues coming up now, I just think that it's important that we go to some of these meetings. But it sounded to me like you've got it to where you can get those covered out and still get the same information.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, anybody else? Counselor No Fire.
What are the areas that are most acceptable to fraud?
The areas?
Yeah. Like we have, Players Club, food and beverage, marketing, construction.
My personal opinion is it's the financial issues, and that's why we do Title 31, the fencing issues with counterfeiting, with perhaps people not paying the taxes on the $10,000. We have smaller counterfeit issues of people doing a $5 or a $10 bill or thing like that. But whenever you get into more larger, and those are outside. Inside Players Club and stuff, that would have to be inside. We have excellent employees. They self-report if they, make a mistake on a promotion or anything like that. So I don't see fraud from any of the casino employees. One of the reasons that we do have regulations is to make sure that we don't have fraud. But I think everyone should be really proud of the employees that C&E employs. They self-report. There is a small, minimal amount of theft. So I think everyone should be really happy with that. But we do have certain responsibilities, to audit, to make sure that everyone is playing the game right, to make sure that the player club is being tracked correctly and everything. But overall, I think we have an excellent organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. I just didn't know which one of those, there's more pieces to that might be more subject to an opportunity that we might have something go wrong.
Yeah.
I think they do great. I'm thrilled with all of our employees and with the work they do. Do we audit those?
We have to turn in audits. We do, every year we have to turn in an audit to NIGC. We also have outside auditors that come in and audit us.
Right.
So, and we do pass those audits. So they run a very tight ship.
And on those audits, are they just strict to our NIGC compliance and state compliances, or is it something that we do extra?
No, we have to make sure that it's NIGC compliant, compliant with the compact.
Right.
The training that Mr. Buzzard was talking about, we have to make sure we're doing all of those things.
So it's just those two. We don't do anything, any other extra policy. We don't change. We don't have any other policies from
We
our,
have,
that's extra than what the federal and NIGC and the state compacts are requiring.
in accordance with law, we meet the minimum internal control standards.
Okay, we do.
And we have to make sure that we are.
Okay, I just want to make sure that are we just doing the bare minimum, or are we going above and beyond?
We also, have to look at Indian Gaming Regulatory Act. We also have to look at the compact, and we have to hit all of those. So that's quite comprehensive.
Okay, all right. Appreciate it, Speaker.
Good, all right, good answers. Yes, Counselor Shaw?
Yeah, Janice, the State Compliance Agency, Gaming Compliance Unit, they're issuing audits. Has Cherokee Nation been issued an audit?
No, and as a matter of fact, that was one of the meetings that we went to, was at Riverwind, to see what our response would be to an audit. And we are one of the only, I think, 2 tribes that have not received a letter. I know that they did, the Creeks called me, the Chickasaws called me and said, have you received a letter? This is when we're having an audit. We just want to give you the heads up. So, but we have not.
In the event of an audit, how would you prepare for that? Can you share? Are we prepared to face an audit?
Yes.
Will they give you notice, or will they just walk in and say, we're here to audit?
They have actually been giving the other tribes maybe a week notice or so.
Thank you.
I guess we just need to be audit ready all the time.
Yes.
Good comments there, good questions there. Yes, Counselor Craig.
Yeah, just follow up on Harley there. I didn't understand it, and believe me, I'm a guy that thinks less travel's better. I do think that. But what little I know about this National Gaming Commission, is there an angle, maybe not, to just our presence being at every one of them? I know the information's the same, but could that be perceived as us kind of snobbing one of those meetings? Is that even an angle that, like Counselor was saying, that some of these tribes want us there? And even if our presence is not there, is that an opportunity to be looked at negatively at all?
I don't think so, because there's only 10 Indian tribes that belong to that one particular one. So are the other 20 tribes? I don't think so. I think they think we're at our office working. Or we also can call them. We have, been in touch with them. So I think that our priority is to Cherokee Nation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Good answer. All right, good report, Janice.
Thank you.
Human Resources? Mr. Nason Morton.
Good afternoon. In addition to my report I submitted, I do have a new amendment to one of our policies dealing with alcohol and controlled dangerous substances. And if you've seen the news lately, we have the announcement on that, and I have, I'm able to talk about that one as well. So does anyone have any questions about either my report or the new changes in the policy?
Yes, Councilor No Fire.
I think we were supposed to bring up some of the discussion a little later, but we can go ahead and talk about it now.
I can stay if you
No,
want to do it.
That's fine too. On our HR policies, did it have anything? I tried to skim through as quickly as I could, or as I was looking at it, I was trying to see if there's anything in regards to safety-sensitive jobs. Do we have a list of that, or is that something that we're going to? I know Chief was putting together something, and we were going to hear from them on what they were looking at doing.
Okay. And I'd be happy to stay around for that one.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you had anything in the HR policy for that.
We had looked at how to designate safety-sensitive positions, and we looked at, obviously, State of Oklahoma and some others who have done it. We did some seminars on just basic information and looking into how that would work.
I'll go here. As I mentioned earlier, we've recently established the executive work group on hemp cannabis and related opportunities, and those are some of the things that we're going to take up with that group. Review the technical aspects of it, sometimes the complicated legal aspects of it, and put together a report that we hope to present to this body by the end of May. And I know that you have that item for discussion only, but that is one of the primary components that we're looking at, if that helps answer your question.
Appreciate it. All right.
Can I send someone to that? Your work group?
Yes.
Was that a yes or no?
It was a yes.
All right, Council Buzzer?
Yeah, Nathan, can you just go over the policy, the new policy about use of cannabis from potential employees and employees? What's the difference in it?
Yes. If you were to come in after the effective date of this policy, if there was some question, you would present your license. And like everything we do, we would verify your license. And on that one, it's the easiest thing is the language. Cherokee Nation will recognize valid medical marijuana licenses from other jurisdictions. So
what happens?
You will not be turned away solely based on that.
Okay, so what happens with employees that have got license or have gotten their license? Is there protection against them from using that?
Currently now, it would apply to them as well if they were to get a license.
Okay, so it would apply to existing employees?
Yes.
There's HR. I know.
And what we're having them do, since this is a very interesting topic dealing with a variety of questions, if we do get a question, have them send it to Human Resources, and we will coordinate with the department and see if we can answer their questions the best we can. But sometimes if you have a license or other credentials or other that you know don't allow it, it would probably be best that you take personal responsibility for that, if you know you can't.
So I guess my question is, if you got a medical license and you're an employee and you use these, what they call gummies, that's okay?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
If you have a medical license and you're a present employee of the Cherokee Nation and you have the medical license and you get these, what they call the gummies or whatever they do, is that okay?
And that's best handled by the employee with how their license works. This policy does not grant anything that your license didn't permit immediately before the passage of this one.
I just have some trouble understanding.
And I know this was
what we're
frustrating
doing,
too,
yeah.
because I can't get up in open forum and say, yeah, sure, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, I understand that.
So we have questions, we're gonna work through it.
Hopefully I can try to help some questions that you guys may have. So with this policy, it does a couple of things. Number one, random testing is no longer part of our policy. So
That was the other question I had.
before we
yes.
would do random testing quarterly, and it would take hundreds of employees out of the workplace, including the HR staff, and the contracts that we have had with an external entity, come in and conduct the testing throughout the entire 14 counties. This will literally save us tens of thousands of dollars for what might have been a one or two positive tests that led to some sort of disciplinary action in a year's time. So we think by eliminating the random testing, it saves money. Secondly,
Now, we're just talking about the government side now.
correct.
Okay.
This is just policy that affects Cherokee Nation employees. We have provided this to the other entities for their review and consideration. They are reviewing these policies themselves and seeing if they can adapt it to their situations as well.
Okay.
As far as the treatment of medical marijuana, the gummies, other CBD oils and treatments, if you have a valid license that's associated with that, we will honor that just like a license for Tylenol-3 or any other prescription that you were provided or given by a licensed physician. And so we are considering it much like any other medication. Based on the policy that's written, not to be using that during work hours. And if, through reasonable suspicion, if we think that the employee is acting erratically or detriment to themselves or others, then we can ask them to submit for reasonable suspicion testing and then proceed on with possible disciplinary action depending on that. So we don't want them to be impaired at work. If they are impaired at work and supervisor, coworker notices that, then we can ask them to go forward for reasonable suspicion. So we will honor it, but if they're impaired to the point that they may be in danger to somebody else, then we will submit them for reasonable suspicion testing and then due process related to that.
And we will still do pre-employment testing?
Correct.
Post-accident?
Those would be the three test points. We'll do pre-employment testing. Secondarily will be reasonable suspicion, and then post-accident, just to make sure you're not impaired while you're out,
I was thinking about
operating a vehicle, a tractor, a lawnmower, anything like that.
Okay.
Does that answer?
that helps, yep, that
Perfect.
helps. That helps.
Counselor Critton?
Are we gonna be putting like, more vending machines throughout the hallways? Hadn't heard of anything like that.
No.
Gummies. Making some extra dollars, but seriously. Now, this policy's not, is it in place?
Yes.
Okay. And my question to you all ago, just to be clear, because I had a call from another entity, which really didn't matter. Now, they can't come back and say, hey, I was fired for that last week. What's the date that we're gonna go by, Todd? Because
The effective date of the
we're gonna
policy.
get calls from a month ago.
Yeah.
Hey, they're doing the same thing I did and I was fired.
January 15th.
Yeah, the effective date of the policy is January the 15th.
And we're not going back a day, a minute, just doing it.
You have to pick a day and that's it.
I will let the council know that we have deliberated on this, looked at this from multiple angles, consulted with the Attorney General's office, Human Resources team. We looked at Department of Labor. We looked at all sorts of other guidelines and funding requirements in developing this policy. And it began in earnest, actually some time ago, but we pulled it back out and we made multiple revisions going back and forth between August and end of December for final consideration by the chief, and he ultimately signed off on it on January the 15th.
Okay, good. Counselor Deere?
All right, nothing to do with gummies or any of that. Process, we talked about the process on getting people after they apply and answers back? Have we made any movement on any of that? I mean, because I've heard people still getting 45 days after filing for a job, like the family advocate that keeps popping up on there. You know, I know they applied for it and they haven't heard anything, but yet it comes up, you guys will put something out, hey, apply for this job. So it's like, is there a disconnect or some reason, or what?
As far as getting the actual time, we're trying to get the jobs done and the notifications out as quickly as possible. And towards those steps, we've done, we talked a little bit about last time about we have an independent firm coming in to kind of look at every step we do and look at everything we have now, including current processes, current software that we use and everything else, to just go step by step through our processes and find areas that we can change a little bit, stop doing or start doing. We've identified a couple, and right now we're at the stages of sitting in a room and we're mapping every step. So, because if I pick this up, I hand it to this person, I use this. They've been here, we're looking up to have them come this month, and they were here for a week, and right now we're still doing the thing where we sit in the room and now what do you do with it? And there'll be more discussions. They're going to come by. They'll be wanting to speak with you guys too.
Okay.
And at the same time we're doing that, I had staff fully participate in that and get that done with, so part of it is there are a couple days where I had no movement on some of my people because it was really important that they participate in this process. And so they did their work before and after. And they really are a credit for lunch breaks before and after moving their
Right. But even like the auto submissions like you do in school when you submit a paper, I mean, nobody has to be there. It kicks it in if you
say it's filled, and right now, the best way that we can do it uniformly without having a lot of other things mess up that you would then come to us and say, hey, by the way, now this is happening.
Right.
Is when we fill it. And that is accepted, they're coming, everything else. Until that point, if we don't do it that way, I have to start all over. And then you get the notice, say, hey, by the way, this one's out. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, I'd have to then call you back, go, by the way, you're back on, if you would like to consider it. And so
it just seems like a process.
Yeah, I was gonna say, one thing our goal is we're trying to automate as much of this process as possible. Including responses back to the applicants and letting them know the status as much as we can. And then in the interaction between the hiring department and HR, so that we can try to streamline that process and get it down. Because we need to be competitive in that market, making sure that we're first to get to the best employees. And so that's
I just want to see where we were as far as catching up in that process to getting people hired.
And the main point about the automation is so we can have more time to have face-to-face time with the applicants.
Right.
All the things that we can do that are automatic saves us time to where I do have the ability to call 8 or 10 people and go, hey, here's where you're going now. Here, we do contact if we need a document or something. And, but yes, we need to figure out a way for our system to where we can remain in contact and let them know everything that's going on. And if I go too far, it really cuts into my ability to actually move the paperwork to get someone hired. If I have.
All right, that's all I had.
Yeah.
Just seeing where you were.
Continue making progress, and I'll give you an update next when it's 2.
Okay.
We kicked off that process last week, and we've actually been sending data for the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Right.
And we hope to have information so that if there's any action we need to make, we'll have it prior to budget season so that we
as long as we're making progress, I mean, that's all that matters. So.
And the good thing about this process, it's not just us. IT's involved, payroll involved, individual departments are involved, and it's going to be a truly comprehensive process.
All right, thanks.
You good? Councilor Shambaugh?
So this only deals with marijuana in the workplace as far as if you have a medical marijuana license and pretty much just tells what's permissible and what's not, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And nothing else at this point?
I don't believe so, sir.
Okay. So in the future, Do you foresee, because obviously if you have a medical marijuana license, hard for me to say, you have to get it somewhere.
Yes.
Are there other tribes that are growing it for profit to sell to their tribe? I mean, I know it's illegal still, federally it's illegal. And, you know, you're talking cultivation is still illegal federally. So, are there any other, or have you looked at maybe?
I believe some bans have been lifted in federal laws for tribal entities to engage in that, and that's one of the reasons the chief has asked for this work group to kick this off and look at it not only from an employment standpoint and usage, but also industrial hemp and other things that we could and potentially should use inside service delivery or business ventures. And so that's what that work group's to look at it, look at the landscape in total.
Well, that's exactly the reason why I was asking, because, you know, if you drive anywhere, these shops are everywhere. But also, I was driving by a place in Grove yesterday. I was going too fast. I really didn't get to read it, but it was Cherokee something. It actually had the name Cherokee in it as a dispensary. So, you know, that kind of just, light bulb started going off in my head, and I knew it wasn't ours, but, you know, that's our name. So, then I started thinking, well, you know, in relation to this, is this something, you know, and if that we are missing out on, or if it's going to be illegal, we can do it. Of course, it's going to be addressed, but I think it's a good thing that Chief's doing this. I mean, we need to keep up, and, you know, there are great benefits for it. I know that in the medical industry. So that was my question, if there is room to add that later on, possibly.
And I think that's the chief's charge for us to look at that under this work group.
All right, thanks, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? Good report. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Moving down to old business. First item, Councilor No Fire.
Yes, this is an act amending Title 10 of the Cherokee Nation Code of Anodot to preserve, protect, and incorporate certain Cherokee tribal traditions, customs, and culture. You know, we brought this up a couple of times already. We've actually brought it back to discuss between our attorney and the Attorney General's office. I think we've got it tailored down to where I know Tim and I are definitely for this, or I'm for this, and I put that in the form of a motion today.
Okay. You got a motion?
Second.
Make a
Second.
motion to table it indefinitely.
Okay. You got a motion and a second, then you got a motion to table indefinitely. Got a second. Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
What are we voting on here?
Definitely.
What are we voting on?
Well, the table supersedes
Got
the
a
first
motion and a
motion.
second.
Yes, that's what I'm.
I have a question.
The table, wait a minute. The table supersedes the motion to approve. I'm just going by what we've been doing for 8 years.
And then you discuss on it, correct? A motion to the table indefinitely, you have room for discussion on it?
No, not that I'm aware of. Okay. Am I on track here, Shelley? Okay. You got a motion and a second to table indefinitely. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay. Raise your hands if you oppose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Motion to table passes. Okay.
Sir, could we have a roll call vote on that?
Yes, we can, if you choose to. Shelley?
This is to table indefinitely.
May I ask a question? His motion was first. Should we not have voted on Wes's motion?
The table supersedes the motion to pass. Motion to table. As long as I can remember, any legal.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I mean, that's
The
we've
main
always.
motion is actually the lowest in the rank.
That's why I've been doing it for 8 years, and I haven't had anybody question it. Maybe I wasn't doing it right, but I thought I was. Okay.
This is on the table indefinitely. Mary Baker Shaw,
No.
E.O. Smith,
Yes.
Denise Taylor,
Yes.
Victoria Vasquez,
Yes.
Keith Austin,
Yes.
Harley Buzzard,
No.
Joe Byrd.
Yes, and I'm gonna give my reason why. We have pending litigation. We just went down to New Orleans to have a hearing, and we can't be going arguing one way and trying to do another, and that's my reason.
Julia Coates,
No.
Sean Crittenden,
No.
Joe Deere,
Yes, but I'm under the same thing that Bert is with the pending litigation. You know, that's where I'm at on that.
Mr. Speaker, when there is no discussion allowed on a motion to table, Robert's Rules of Order, the proper thing is that we are not allowed to discuss during a vote either. The only thing we can do is vote yes or no. That's Robert's Rules of Order. Thank you.
Point well taken. Continue the voting.
Mike Dobbins,
Oh, he's not in here.
Damon Duncan,
Yes.
Rex Jordan,
Yes.
Darrell Legg,
No.
Wes Snowfire,
No.
Dora Petzkowski,
Yes.
Mike Shambaugh.
Yes.
Got Mike here now.
Counselor Dobbins, we're doing a roll call vote on the motion to table indefinitely on the Title 10 Indian Child Welfare Act Amendment. Your vote yes would table indefinitely, no means you want to discuss it.
I'm sorry, I had to step outside. I'm not sure I'm well versed on what I'm voting on.
He wasn't here.
No discussion. I'm sure if I had 90 seconds from somebody, I'd probably know how to, whatever.
Okay, as the chair, I'm gonna explain to you what we just voted on.
Okay, thank you.
There was a motion to pass this resolution 19096, and there was a second to pass. Then there was a motion to table, which supersedes the motion to pass. So we got a motion and a second. So it was voted on now, we're roll call vote on that. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get that, Shelley?
Yes. We have 11 yes and 6 no. The motion to table indefinitely.
Okay, next resolution, Counselor Rex, would you take that?
Sure, this resolution confirming the nomination of Michael Doublehead as a commissioner of the Cherokee Nation Tax Commission. And I put that in form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second.
Mr. Speaker.
Kanan?
Mike had sent me a message and asked that I would read something on his behalf today. He says he's very thankful for the opportunity to serve the Cherokee Nation and our citizens. He appreciates the privilege to serve in any capacity and also appreciates the job that the council does in serving our nation. He's sorry he can't attend today, but he's welcoming the newest member of the Cherokee Nation. He said his grandson was born a week early today, so he could not be here. But he regrets that and wanted me to read that for him.
Okay. Well, I got a motion and a second. Are you going to add something, Tara?
I was just going to offer the same that Counselor Duncan did.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Next resolution. Counselor Nofire, you want to read that?
Yes, this is a resolution confirming the renomination of Steve Wilson as a commissioner of the Cherokee Nation Tax Commission. I put that in form of a motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Steve Wilson here. Any questions for Mr. Steve Wilson? He's served well before, does a good job, and he's willing to serve again. So if you've got any questions, here's your chance. Yeah, Counselor Shambaugh?
One question, sir. You Cherokee Nation voter?
Yes, sir.
That's all I want to hear.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm privileged to serve also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Counselor No Fire, you want to take the last one?
Yeah, this is an act to protect Cherokee employees and holders of the medical marijuana license in the context of an employment. Obviously, we've already discussed quite a bit of this. This was discussion only brought forward, and then HR addressed the policy. Spoke to the chief about this. He's already done his awesome part of stepping forward to the plate and addressing a lot of the concerns that was already there. I think the whole reason I kind of was still wanting to possibly get it discussed today was just the fact that a legislative act is a little stronger than our HR policy because it would become law, not just a policy. But Chief's office has already put that work group together to help influence that legislative act that would come before us. So that's just kind of where I'm on that. And if anybody has any questions.
Well, we appreciate you bringing it forward, first of all. Yes, Chief, you want to add something to this? I know you've already established a work group.
Sure, and just I appreciate the councilman's interest in the issue as well, and I know the entire council's interested in not this issue, not only this issue, but every employment issue we have. It does seem to me that the policy route's the better route, provides some flexibility. We would never change anything like that to the detriment of employees without some notice, and I don't intend to change it unless some legal authority tells me we have to. The work group Secretary Harsha is leading is designed to, and I know this is beyond the scope of this discussion item possibly, but it is designed so that we can all have some baseline of good information to make policy on. It's a report that will go to the council, it'll come to me, and then we can go about the business of doing more on these issues. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yes. Anybody else?
I just
Yes,
have a
Counselor
question,
Taylor?
and I can see half a dozen lawyers in the room with just a cursory glance. So my question is, the HR policy, I'm going to make a jump where you're going with this, is if an employee were fired, but they had their medical marijuana card and all of that, this act would give more teeth to their case.
I have to go to my attorney on that, but ideally.
My question is your intent.
No,
with this.
my intent was that originally, before the HR policy was even changed, was to address the concern that since it is state legalized medically, that our employees wouldn't be scrutinized, or people who are applying for a job wouldn't be discriminated against for applying simply because they have been diagnosed with something that they choose to use an alternative method that's been medically legal through the state.
Okay, so let me get to my question then. In light of that, is the HR policy,
What's going on?
they have their card, our policy says you will not be terminated if you test positive with this card. Does that policy have enough teeth that they can point to it and say, I met all the rules of the policy? That's what I'm asking. Does the policy have enough teeth to keep somebody from bringing this as a legal argument against Cherokee Nation, were this to become the issue that their employment hinged on?
The attorneys are all.
Wow, how many standing up?
Tyler's kicking back
there. You know, every employment action, adverse employment action taken with respect to a Cherokee Nation employee gives rise to a potential review and then a potential of litigation. And if they were terminated in violation of this or any HR policy, that is the basis for overturning a termination. So even though there's not a statute that says this, we also keep in mind that every rule and regulation in the Cherokee Nation is born out of some statutory and constitutional authority. So there already is some statutory authority for rules concerning drug use, permissibility, that sort of thing. So I'm fully confident that if someone was fired in violation of this policy, they would have a cause of action. That's a hypothetical. There could be all sorts of other things, but I don't think that the absence of a statute addressing this weakens the protections for employees any more than the absence of a statute for any other rule or regulation in the handbook. And if anyone, they work for me, I'm going to ask them if they disagree.
And one of the things I would point out is that the primary objective of the work group that we've established is to identify areas of change that need to occur in policy and whether or not those changes also need to be reflected in some type of legislative action. And so My understanding after talking with Councilman No Fire is that the policy changes that we made address the primary goal and objective that he had intended this act to do. I know from my experience working in the Attorney General's office, you know, the policy changes are impactful and would absolutely prevent a termination based on those issues. The work group that we have has all the right people there. We have a diverse team of the business end, health practitioners, legal professionals, government professionals, and our objective is to have this report together and to this body no later than the end of May. And I think pulling everyone together, putting together that framework is going to have some powerful guidance on policy and legislative changes going forward.
Speaker, can I just clarify the question earlier about the purpose?
Sure.
The purpose of this act was merely to require the policy. That's all.
Okay.
It's very simple, and the only difference is that if the chief changes his mind and wants to change the policy back, he can. With the act, he can't.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I mean, it's right now, the chief has all the power because the council hasn't used its power. That's all, that's the only change.
I'm good. Speaker.
Okay, anybody else?
I
Councilor
want to
Lake?
make a recommendation to the committee. And I don't know the legality, but maybe it's something Dr. Montgomery can do. So if you go to get a medical marijuana recommendation from a doctor, they can gouge you up to $200. And that may be something that we might look into for our patients, because if we're saying the only alternative we have is to give you this legal Oxycontin for your pain, and then we got to give you legal Suboxone to get you off the legal opiate, which is an opiate, to get you off that opiate, can we not provide the recommendation to our patients? And that's just a question that I would have the committee try to find out through our clinic without being in trouble by anybody. Can we say we can go to one of our primary care physicians and get a medical marijuana recommendation? Now, they're still going to pay $104.25 to get it filled through OMMA. But at least it's not going to be a $300 total bill for them to go and get their medical marijuana license.
And those are precisely the type of issues that we're looking at. The jurisdictional differences, the law as it applies on a federal level, as it applies to tribal and Indian health centers, you know, those are all the complicated web of regulatory jurisdictions we're trying to unpack in that. And so that is certainly one of the issues that we're going to discuss. And one of the other elements of this work group is to create I'm going to try to put together an email box where individuals who have these types of questions can send them to us so that we can get a better perspective of where people are at on these issues so that we can walk through those. I mean, it's going to be a pretty comprehensive group, and it's going to be a very thorough process. And that is one issue that we've already identified to look into.
If you ever want a councilman on the work group, I'll volunteer.
Understood.
Okay. Councilor Shambaugh?
I guess the only thing I have to say about this is after hearing everything today, you know, you hear the words due diligence a lot. You know, we always want to do our due diligence and gathering all the information possible. I like the group study. Before I can make a decision on what I want to do, I want to hear what all you attorneys have to say. From, you know, because, you know, we're going to have to be dealing with some federal laws and things that could affect us, you know, things that could affect our money. Right. I mean, those things have to be taken into consideration before we do anything. And, you know, then if you want to determine whether you want to make this where it goes beyond reproach if we pass it, or is this something that we want to make it where it can be changed if we need to change it? I mean, that's important too. Sure. You know, when you tie yourself into something, you know, and I think those are some of the things, and I know that you guys, you know, and I have all the faith in the world in you guys, because you guys have done, and ladies, you have done a good job of protecting, you know, the Cherokee Nation. You think ahead of those things that could possibly be detrimental to us, and you give us that information. But to make a determination on what I would want to do would be virtually impossible for me without first hearing from all of you. And then, if you want to do something, and you sit in front of this council and you justify it, like I know you will, if you want to do something, you'll tell us why. That's what we need to hear before we can make a determination on what we want to do. So, it's interesting to see how it's going to come out and what you come up with and what you present to us. But I'm fully supportive of that group and what you're doing. And I think until we find out what our legal minds say, I think it'd be iffy at all to make any type of decision before that happens.
And if I may add to that, I think that, one of the reasons why policy changes, as we have done already through HR that we've discussed earlier this afternoon, legislative acts are very rigid, and this area is constantly changing. And one of the things that we're going to evaluate is what's the appropriate vehicle for making some of these changes. And policy changes are a lot easier to change and a lot more flexible to amend and adopt as these areas emerge. And one of the other things I wanted to mention as one of the primary objectives of this work group is eliminating the confusion. There's a lot of confusion on these topics. There's a lot of confusion on particularly the hemp side of things, about the marketability, the business end of cultivation. These are all questions that are circling everywhere. We get a lot of interest. We get a lot of from the public and questions about this on our side, and the idea is to bring some clarity on all of this. And so I think that report and our due diligence review of this is what we're trying to do to accomplish that.
And just to add one more thing, and this has been brought up, and this is very important, and it's been brought up by a couple of people and by the speaker himself. But we have ongoing litigation too. And anything that could affect that ongoing litigation in a negative manner, that would be an injustice to that case if it was done beforehand, I think. So, it may change things whenever it's finished, but I agree with the speaker wholeheartedly.
Anybody else? Yes, Councilor Crittenden.
Sir, who was the on that work group?
The work group consists of, I think I'm serving as chairman. We have Secretary of State, Chief of Staff. We have Roger Montgomery from the health system. I don't remember off the top of my head. I can circulate that news release to you. And we're pulling everyone together for our first meeting, and I think we've tentatively pinned that down early February. So.
And it's all of the avenues.
Yeah,
Councilman, I have it if you'll just read it so everyone knows. So Chad Harsha, Tiny Glory Jordan, Todd Enlow, Peyton Qualls from the Attorney General's office, Andy McMillan from CMB to evaluate the commercial side of it directly with Cherokee Nation, Kim Teehee, Government Relations, Dr. Roger Montgomery of Cherokee Nation Health Services.
That's a good list for sure. Now, part of that work group's dealing with the potential of business and just all aspects of that, right?
That's correct.
And but you're still going to be looking at some of the employee issues and how it's going to affect job sites, whatnot. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're going to be looking at
on all these groups like this, probably being a well, I'd like to see some lower levels, not a good term, but maybe some employees mixed in with that work group. Maybe some different supervisors from our different type work sites that's going to be dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. Maybe a few people that have a card, maybe I'd like to see some of that input with all of you great people.
And I can certainly take that back for discussion in our first meeting. I think that the group that we've assembled is very diverse, very knowledgeable, and a lot of this is
all of those names I heard are.
A lot of this is not, a political exercise. It is a technical exercise.
But it's going to be a work site. It's going to be different if you're working with forklifts or if you're sitting in an office. Sure. Just some of those supervisors, their input, some of the employee, hey, when can I do this? Just a different voice from a little bit lower. Lower's not a good word, but I think you know what I mean.
I understand what you mean.
Thank you. That's all I had to say.
Anybody else?
Just a little input.
All right, Counselor Legg, you want to wrap this up?
So those participants that we have maybe coming in on day work, if they have a medical marijuana card and we drug test them, are they gonna be allowed to go ahead and go to their workstation?
Right now, as far as our federal programs, you're prohibited.
Right, but just the tribal day work?
I have to get the results.
Okay, something to think about.
Okay, a lot of discussion going on, so thanks for bringing it up. We got a lot more to go.
Are you speaking?
Yes, anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think that wraps it up. Any announcements? Okay, I may need someone to make a motion, Agiyoshi.
Second.
All right.